Would you like to know how to set up a beautiful, lush and vibrant looking low maintenance planted aquarium? Well, I'll show you, but first a short clip from our sponsors. Today's video is sponsored by Epic Aquatics. If you want to buy beautiful and lush plants, then look no further. They stock a big variety of great looking plants with very healthy and large root systems, all at affordable prices. Available at most local aquarium stores and online retailers in and across South Africa. Choose quality. Choose Epic Aquatics. A link to their Facebook page will be down in the description. What's up guys, Jock here from McMerwe Farms and welcome to today's video where I'll be showing you how to set up a low-tech planted aquarium. This is a very basic video as everything will be as low-tech as possible. This guide is meant for people with no experience to people with moderate experience. This guide will also give you an idea of what easy to use plants you can use in a shrimp tank. So first things first, if you want to grow beautiful plants, whether it is low or high-tech plants, you must understand that any aquatic plant needs light in order to survive. If you have a light with the right spectrum, then half of the work is already done. I previously made a video series about what light you need, which you can check out here. To sum up those videos, try and find a light that has a Kelvin rating of between 6000 and 8000 Kelvin, the sweet spot being either 6500 Kelvin or 7000 Kelvin. So for this 150 litre aquarium we are setting up today, we're going to use 3 of these normal 6500 Kelvin 8 watt globes. This should provide us with low to medium intensity light. Now these globes are very cheap and affordable. You can get them for around 30 Rand in South Africa, which is basically $2.5 US. The fittings are also cheap. They just look a bit disorganized if they are exposed like this, but this aquarium forms part of my breeding rack and here I don't really care how the lights look. Okay, so now that the light discussion is out of the way, let's talk about the substrate you'll need for effective plant growth. You basically get 2 types of substrate. One type containing nutrients, while the other does not contain nutrients. Remember that most plants do need nutrients in order to grow. No nutrient substrates are things like river sand, pool filter sand, diamond blasting sand or regular stones. And nutrient-rich substrates are things like ADA Amazonia, Protobio Aquasoil and Lunga. Now there are a buttload of other substrates available on the market. These are just the ones that are readily available in and around South Africa. The problem with nutrient-rich substrates is that they eventually get depleted and then you are left with little to no nutrients in the soil. This normally happens between year 1 and 3. You can use products like Osmocote that you can add to your depleted substrate, but that can get very complicated. So use Osmocote or any substrate refertilizer with caution. But we are doing a low-tech planted tank. In my opinion, that means it's a semi-hands-off aquarium. I don't want to replace the soil after a couple of years and I also don't like to use Osmocote to refresh nutrients. So I'm going with black diamond blasting sand, but any nutrient-rich substrate will also do a fantastic job. Now I normally use pool filter sand in all my aquariums as it is cheap and you can find it at most local pool maintenance stores. For a 20 kg bag it will cost you around 80 Rand, which translates to $11 in the US. You are most likely going to use very little of the 20 kg bag. Just make sure you wash the pool filter sand or diamond blasting sand very thoroughly with clean water. At least rinse it 5 to 10 times. For this aquarium I'm not using pool filter sand but rather black diamond blasting sand, as the black of the substrate will create a better contrast with the green plants that we'll be using. Black diamond blasting sand is just a bit more expensive than pool filter sand. In South Africa, 2 of these 5 kilogram bags were 100 Rand each and that translates to about $17 in the US. Okay, so now you know I'm going with cheap, light and relatively cheap soil. So let's talk about the plants. I'm going to use plants from the Epic Aquatic range, who is also today's video sponsor. I added a few of my own plants as well. 90% of the plants that I'm going to use will grow without expensive soil, without CO2, and they will survive without liquid fertilizers. But do note that not all of these plants will thrive. All you basically need for the plants I have chosen is just the right spectrum light. I'll add a list in the description of plants you can use in a low-tech planted setup. Back to the plants I'll be using. Now I already prepared these plants and I'll show you in a future video how to properly prepare store-bought plants, and if this video is already done it should pop up on your screen now. So let's see what plants I'm going to be using today. First up, we have Ozelot, both the green and the red variants. A few Amazon swords, Hydrocotyle Tripartite, Rotala Colorata, Rotala Green, some Cryptocoryne Wendtii, Ludwigia Repens, then Hemianthus micranthemoides, and lastly a few pieces of Vallis. For filtration, I'm going to go with two of these modified sponge filters that I did a review on in my last video. I also have an old piece of spiderwood, and at a later stage I'll cover this with some Fissidens moss, but for now it will stay the way it is. So before I start planting, please bear in mind that this is a shrimp breeding tank on a shrimp breeding rack. It is not meant to look good, it is meant to breed shrimp. I will try to do my best to do a relatively good scape, just note that I do have no scaper's intuition. Okay, so planting is done. Now to fill up with water. I started to fill up the aquarium and then my battery died. Worse than that, 3 hours after it has been filled, the bottom of the tank cracked and I flooded my fish room. So I cleaned up my mess and quickly set up another tank on the same rack while trying to plant the plants in the same position that you saw me plant them. Fast forward 2 weeks later, I added Malaysian trumpet snails to help maintain my aquarium. Overall, the aquarium turned out quite nice. I think when all the Bloody Mary shrimp are added, they'll look fantastic in this aquarium. I also think that when the driftwood has finished leaching the tannins and the water clears up, this aquarium will look vibrant and colorful. For those of you who don't know, wood sometimes gives your water this yellow color. This is in most cases beneficial to your livestock. I know that it does not look great, but it will clear up eventually with the water changes that I do. So let's have a closer look at the aquarium before I end this video. The Ozelot Green is planted in the left back corner and will hopefully create a bit of height in the aquarium. And the Ozelot Red in the front will create a beautiful contrast to the green. The Hydrocotyle between the spiderwood is the only plant that will barely survive in these conditions, and you can see it already took a beating. But once it has melted completely, it will look quite epic. When it has grown in, it has a very bright green color that will create a nice contrast with the dark wood. Here and there we have some Ludwigia Repens. I opted to plant the Cryptocoryne in the middle to create a barrier from the plants in the background. As this is a low-tech aquarium, the leaves won't grow as long as they do in a high-tech aquarium, making them the perfect mid-ground plant for this setup. In the middle of the crypts there is a small piece of Hydrocotyle Vietnam, however you pronounce that I trimmed down to almost nothing as it did have blackbeard on it when I received it. It was not part of the initial plants that I got. I added it a week after setting up the other plants. I am not sure if it will grow in these conditions, but some say it will, so I'm trying it out. It does look like it's doing relatively good and there are some new growth. Just behind that we have a row of Hemianthus micranthemoides. I plan to keep these relatively short, maybe between 7 to 12 centimeters, and it will require a lot of trimming to make sure it does not reproduce runners to the side. Behind that, to the left, we have some Rotala Green and also some Rotala Colorata to the right of that. You can already see the narrow submerged growth leaves that resemble new growth compared to the wider leaves at the bottom that are immersed grown older leaves. But the Rotala plants will get a big trim to about 4 centimeters tall once their roots have settled in. Hiding in the back, we have some Vallisneria already taking over as always. Then once again some Ludwigia Repens here, with an Amazon sword there and there. The rest of the Ozelot red are in the right corner at the back. Looking forward to their red coming out and properly creating some nice contrast to the rest of the scape. Once again, overall the results are quite good for a low-tech planter tank. I am very satisfied. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. In about a month I'll do a major trim on this aquarium, and by then the water should also be clear. I'll wait for the plants to grow back after the trim, and if it has grown back, I'll add a video of how it turned out, which should pop up on your screen now. I'll most likely be adding some plants later, maybe even removing some. I'll always have an excuse to keep my elbows wet with this aquarium. Okay guys, now for your 3 tips. Tip number 1. Get a timer for your light. It's totally worth it. Not needing to switch on and off your light manually can create less algae and more stability. In my experience, 7 hours of light should be the perfect balance between algae control and good looking plants. But remember, every aquarium differs, so this will not always be the case. Tip number 2. If you are breeding Neocaridina shrimp, rather go for pool filter sand, as it normally contains no trace elements that can harm your shrimp. Black diamond blasting sand sometimes contains certain metals that can harm your shrimp, so be very careful. The only reason I use black diamond blasting sand is to create contrast with the green plants. I also have tested the black sand to see if it contains any metals that can harm my livestock, and in this case it was safe. And lastly, tip number 3. If you dose fertilizers, always dose less than they prescribe on the instructions. If you see your plants struggle and you don't have any algae problems, then you can consider dosing more liquid fertilizers. But that's it for this video guys. If this video sucked, you know what to do, but if it was awesome, get subscribed, press that like button and check out our other videos. I hope you guys learned something today, and as always, keep it shrimple.